So once again, a warm welcome to all our participants to today's online training module on disinformation about women. We have a number of participants in the Zoom room who are slowly entering, and as we leave time for participants to enter, I just want to say a warm welcome to all our trainers today. Before introducing our excellent trainers for today, I just will say a few words about the reasons behind this training series. So as you know, you may know, this is the second module of a three-part training series on identity-based disinformation. My name is Lisa Ginsburg. I'm responsible for the EDMO training program, and it's a pleasure to restart our training program for the year with this three-part training series on identity-based disinformation. Why did we choose as EDMO to look at identity-based disinformation? We think this is a particularly pressing topic of our time. Of course, it's not a single phenomenon. It's multifaceted, and this is why we chose to break down this training series into three parts. We already had one module on disinformation about migrants and minorities, which took place 2 weeks ago. And we had a lot of interest from participants. We also have a recording, which will be live on our website today or tomorrow. So if you missed the first installment of this training series, please feel free to go back and watch the recording. This is our second installment, which looks specifically about disinformation about women. So another extremely pressing topic of our time. And we will have a third installment looking at disinformation about LGBTQ plus communities and individuals. So why did we choose to look at this? Of course, we think there is need for increased understanding of the narratives, the tactics, the actors, the responses to each of these areas. We think it's very important to unpack these different areas and how they differ from each other. And of course, we also think it's important to have legal clarity about what kind of behavior we're talking about, when it overlaps with hate speech, what are the harms that this kind of disinformation may cause, and also to learn more from concrete case studies across Europe. So it's my great pleasure to move on to the first case study and introduce Domenico Cangemi. So we will hear a bit more about what's happening in Italy. Domenico collaborates with EDMO, the Italian Digital Media Observatory, and the LUIS Data Lab in the fields of machine learning and data science applied to the analysis of disinformation and algorithms. He holds a PhD in pure mathematics from the University of Palermo and a master's degree in mathematics from the University of Padua with an experimental thesis in category theory. So we look forward to hearing more about your research on this topic in Italy. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you to the previous speakers. I will share my screen now. So yes, as Lisa was mentioning, today I will present a case study, in particular analyzing how hate speech targets Italian women politicians, and in particular also building upon what Lucina already presented with her work. She persisted, which was the basis on which we built our methodology and our analysis. I cannot move. Okay. So first of all, our research questions were the following. In particular, we wanted to first of all try to conduct a large-scale analysis on the discourse that spreads online in a few of Italian women politicians' social media profiles. We wanted to do so in a systematic and methodological way, and try to answer the questions that you see presented in the slide. So in particular, how hate speech, gender hate speech is distributed across Italian women politicians, whether it's concentrated on a few, let's say, most relevant figures, or it spreads uniformly, and both at the level of individual person or at the level of a political party. Also, of course, we wanted to investigate whether this type of insult and hate speech and violent language also merges and fuses with disinformation narratives, and of course try to see if some recurring patterns emerge in the text analyzed. So really quickly I'll sum up the methodology that we use. So I should also mention that uh, our research center is an interdisciplinary one, so this work, of course, was not only mine, but in our team we have journalists and fact checkers and computer scientists. So it's um, a shared job and work with all of them. And so we started with a list of 38 Italian women in politics, taken uniformly among the principal political parties that are presently relevant in Italy. From this list, we collected the social media posts of these 38 individuals relatively to 2025, so starting from the 1st of January and up to the 31st of December. And for each one of these posts, we collected the top 100 comments, and I should also specify that when I say social media posts, I mean um, all the platforms where the politician had a social media profile. So specifically, we focused on Instagram, Twitter, now X, Facebook, and TikTok. So after gathering the top 100 comments under each one of these posts, we applied, let's say, a first layer of filtering, in particular, only considering the posts that contain some particular keywords. A list that we generated, again, together with journalists and analysts, containing I don't remember exactly how many, but uh, a lot, a few dozens of keywords related to violent language targeting women. And then the last step was to try to have a more LLM approach to this data set. In particular, where we trained a model for classifying these comments. We focused on two main categories, let's say. So we wanted to classify comments for containing sexist language or belittling and humiliating language. And of course, we also wanted to check if some comments were mislabeled, let's say, in the first filtering part. So we also wanted the model to see if the comment actually did not contain any of these types of language. In particular, we did not assign like one of these categories, but we we assigned to each comment a score of let's say membership to each categories, because of course these categories are not necessarily unique, meaning that one comment can be classified as both categories. So a few metrics. So for the um, first big data set containing all the comments, the total was about 775,000 comments. After the first layer of filtering, we ended up with 35,000 comments. And of those, let's say that the ones that were classified as humiliating were more or less, oh sorry, sexist were, oh no, I think yes, the ones classified as humiliating were more than 4 times the ones classified as sexist, and 6,000 of them were classified as not containing any of the two types of language. So, at these are some bar plots where we show the percentages of both categories relating to the political parties that we took in consideration. And as you can see, the sexist language percentages were more varied, but the humiliating ones were consistently higher. And it should also be noticed, and maybe it does not come as a surprise, that the first political party for both categories in terms of percentage was Forza Italia, which is the party of the late President Berlusconi, and we will see why this probably is relevant. So here you can see the, let's say, top 10 political figures, also sorted by percentages in descending order. And I know, of course, not everyone is familiar with the Italian politician, but what's interesting is that this top 10 includes women politicians coming from the entire political spectrum, so center right, center left, and the five-star movement. We will see more in detail. So, as I was saying, we were also interested in finding, if possible, some patterns that repeated consistently in the dataset, and we found some. So, in particular, back to the distinction between sexist and humiliating categories that we considered. As pertains the sexist one, we saw that the, let's say, main pattern that emerged was the presence of comments that tried to silence the woman, the woman politician. Another very common category was the use of animal figures and animal similarities, of course, used as insults to because of stereotypes and in order to dehumanize the person. Also, of course, there are a lot of sexually explicit and violent insults, also tied often to death threats. And of course, a lot of the comments targeted the physical appearance of the politicians. So, talking about their bodies rather than what message they were trying to communicate, or their political ideal in general. As pertains the humiliating category, most of the comments were a variation of shame on you. And but even more used words conveying a sense of incompetence to the politician. specifically, so saying they were useless, they were incompetent, they were not fit for their position. And you can see the other patterns, and one of them was, of course, more ideological, concerning those comments that called the politician specifically as a fascist or communist. So again, one of the main patterns was silencing. This was present among all the politicians, and uh, we will see more in detail why some of these figures were more targeted than others. For example, um, Senator Lorenzin, which was also the top one politician targeted by this kind of speech, had the highest percentage of more than 20% of comments trying to silence her. And this was, in most cases, tied to um, vaccination reasons. But we will see later. Unfortunately, I'm losing track of time, so please interrupt me.
Yeah, indeed,
And
Domenico, we have 5 minutes left. So when
oh,
there's
okay,
a few questions coming in for you, but I leave you to wrap up first.
okay. So I still have 5 minutes.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. So I'll try to be more faster. So as I was mentioning, another pattern was the one of body shaming in general, targeting the physical appearance, and in particular, depending on the specific individual, for being too beautiful, which was considered a way of saying that the person was not taken seriously for the role, or on the opposite, for being too old or too ugly, for being too short or too strong. As I was mentioning, the animal world similarities ran across the whole data set, but we can move on. Another interesting aspect was the using the role of being a mother as a weapon against the politician. This was mainly present in Giorgia Meloni's comments, which is our prime minister, and so they were all variations of the same concept, which means how can you be a mother and say or do this? So it was used as a again as a weapon against the message that was trying to be conveyed, even if of course not related. And as was also being mentioned previously, a lot of comments mentioned some alleged past of these politicians as being showgirls or escorts, and most of all, again, back to the first party being targeted, being the former President Berlusconi's party. This is relevant because all the women politicians now part of that political party were targeted by comments saying that they were there only because of Berlusconi, because they were linked to him, not for political reasons. Also, really quickly, I wanted to also highlight some disinformation and the fabricated narratives coming up from the data set. So in particular, the main ones being an alleged addiction to cocaine of our president, also tied to geopolitical narratives concerning Ukraine and President Zelensky. Um, in a lot of cases, these comments were equal verbatim, so hinting at suspected coordination effort towards them. The narrative that emerged was the one concerning vaccinations. Again, the most targeted individual was Senator Lorenzin, who was targeted mainly because of a law of 2017 concerning the mandatory vaccination for children for accessing schools. So most of these comments propagated narratives of vaccines poisoning children and being the tool of big pharmaceutical agencies, and also of being a way of experimenting on human beings. And in most cases, these narratives were also tied to more um, conspiracy theories concerning the global elites and the New World Order, and also, of course, immigration. But again, I'm not sure how much time I've left, so maybe
Yes,
I'll
indeed, Domenica,
just
thank you so
stop
much.
here.
This takes
Thank
us
you.
also back to our training module from a couple of weeks ago and how these different areas are clearly interlinked. There's a few questions. It's my great pleasure to introduce Karel. Karel Lott is a junior research fellow in digital media studies at the University of Tartu. His PhD project focuses specifically on the rise of misogyny, gender disinformation, and misogynist influences in online spaces. In addition to conducting research, he has several years' experience in teaching future media professionals at the University of Tartu and conducting workshops on topics of digital culture, social media, gender, and misogyny. Karel, it's great to have you here, and we look forward to hearing more about what's happening in Estonia. Thank
Hi, thank you so much for that introduction and the previous speakers as well. It's been fascinating to listen to you all. Um, so I'm Karel. I'm from the University of Tartu. I'm doing my PhD still, and today I'm gonna present some of the results of my previous studies. I guess my topic is more about the misogynists next door. I would say, as Lucina outlined earlier. So my theme is a bit different. But I think it's also very important sort of socio-political context. So I am looking at more at so what is happening with regular young men and boys on social media. So without further ado, let's jump in. As I mentioned, these are the two studies that you can they're free to read. You can look them up if you're more interested, where I explore these issues. And specifically, I am looking at the manosphere in the Estonian context. So first of all, what even is the manosphere? Let's make the sort of basic things clear, right? So the manosphere is considered to be online communities that focus on men's perspectives and their grievances and issues, which, I mean, that part sounds fine, right? But disproportionately, women get blamed for various issues that men are facing. So there are different communities with different emphases. So they might be focusing on sexual relationships. They might be focused on seduction. They might be more focused on political issues. But their ideologies or the sort of core themes tend to be quite similar. In terms of platforms, uh, I guess historically, the manosphere is more associated with the platforms of Reddit and 4chan. But recently, we are seeing a lot of shifts to more mainstream environments, such as TikTok and YouTube and Instagram. And this is a very important sort of shift that has been happening because Reddit and 4chan are forum-based communities. Most people on there are anonymous, while with the sort of migration to these mainstream platforms, um, there are like key figures that tend to get more attention now, and more people are on there expressing their opinions with their sort of public profiles or whatever, which really changes the narratives that are being talked about. But yeah, so some more context about the manosphere. They are united by a metaphor that they borrowed or adapted from the movie The Matrix, where a person is given a choice between a blue and a red pill, where taking the blue pill symbolizes living a life of obliviousness while you're actually being exploited by someone who is against you. And then the other option is to take the red pill, where you learn a shocking truth about society. You find out that you are being exploited, and then you sort of get empowered and find the means to do something about this exploitation. And in the context of the manosphere, this shocking truth is that society is geared against men, and they view feminism as a hatred of men. In the manosphere, they use a lot of genetic determinism to explain behavior in general, but oftentimes it's very focused on sexual behavior specifically. So women are oftentimes perceived as irrational by nature, hypergamous, which means they try to seduce men with higher statuses to elevate their own social status, and that women are more submissive by nature. And therefore, if you want to date as a man, then you will only be successful if you fall under the stereotype of the alpha male. So just a few examples of manosphere communities that you've probably heard of. Incels, these are men who are living in involuntary celibacy. They are very focused on sex and view it as their fundamental right, and that women are deliberately withholding sex from them, and they have very abusive responses to this perception, including ideas of mass violence. And the other very famous community is pickup artists who are focused on seduction and this very sort of dating economy perception to romantic relationships, where they just give each other tips for dating, but oftentimes these tips are focused on seduction. But what I think is even more important today is the shift to the mainstream platforms, and this brings us to manfluencers. These are internet personalities who weaponize very performative ideas about masculinity and promote very sexist ideas about women. And their content is very focused on building masculine capital, which just means that they are very focused on performing traits that are associated with these traditional notions of masculinity. So, heterosexuality, having a lot of money, all of these things. Uh, yeah. I think one manfluencer that you've probably all heard of is Andrew Tate, but I don't think we should be focusing on him that much, because this type of content has very much developed into a sort of category of influencers with very similar ideas. So in Estonia, with my mapping, I found some categories of manfluencers. So some of them focus on fitness, some on financial advice, some on life advice. Some of them do just like humorous sketches that just have very sexist jokes. In Estonia, the spiritual category is quite interesting. I'm not sure how big this is in other countries. Um, Estonia, I guess, is quite like an atheist country, but we do have a lot of like spirituality and belief in nature and these things. So perhaps this is tied to this social context. But they talk a lot about these um, um, ancient things, or I guess this falls under the category of genetic determinism, but they talk about these ancient urges that men and women have and frame these gender issues in that sort of context. Um, and then the podcast and gaming categories, which in terms of categorization are more focused on the sort of technical organization of the manfluencers. So the podcasters oftentimes have guests that they invite there, whereas the other categories usually just talk by themselves, talk about their ideas alone. And then gaming, where they just do gameplay videos, but also discuss gender issues while they're gaming. So yeah. So in my research, I looked more closely at the fitness, finance, and life advice categories that you can see on the right side of the screen because they are the most dominant. And let me take you through quickly what are they actually saying. So on a macro level, how they view society is I call this a doom and gloom society. They claim that society is in a state of social chaos and moral decline, where the true man has become endangered and emasculated and feminized. And this is where their sort of coaching comes in because they offer tips to their audiences on how to reclaim your masculinity as a young man or boy. And a very common narrative in their content is longing for the past because they perceive the current society in such a bad light. And they very strongly oppose progressive contemporary topics, for example, mental health issues, queer rights, and these themes. And another narrative that comes up here is victimhood. So they create a very strong sense of victimhood as men and categorize society into sort of brainwashed masses who are persecuting men, these good masculine men. And in terms of their language, they use a lot of profanities and slang to really emphasize their victim status, as you can see from the quote below here as well. So secondly, we move to the micro level. So what should the individual audience member do if they want to escape this sort of state of doom and gloom society and actually sort of do something with their life? So they claim, the manfluencers claim in Estonia at least, if you want to live a better life, you need a lot of self-discipline and restraint and endurance. And they give you various tests to see if you are good enough. So they list different activities that they condemn such as watching pornography, masturbating, using nicotine, partying, gaming, having mental health problems, interestingly, too. So if you manage to stay away from these things, you have strong self-discipline. Yeah. And you might think that this sort of victimized position that the manfluencers claim to take would unify them in some way, but at the same time, they create a very strong environment of judgment between other men, and this is the place where they really subordinate other non-dominant masculinities, and they list different metrics that correspond to these traditional masculinity ideals. So financial success, are you married, do you have children, what do you look like physically, and your mental health state. So finally, as the third sort of discourse, we get to the social meso level. So if you have enough endurance and restraint, you are fit to dominate other groups in society. Here they really emphasize this normative need for men to be dangerous and violent. The narrative of combat was very, very common. So they view men as very territorial and women as part of this territory. And this is why sort of male protection, in their view, is compulsory for women, where a lot of sort of victim blaming narratives came up as well in their discourse. And secondly, a lot of vilifying women, which helps to sort of justify their domination and their violence as men. So women get blamed for a lot of issues, men's low self-esteem, and in terms of language, they use a lot of objectification and condescending language. So, for example, from the quote here, you can see one manfluencer comparing a woman to a dog in terms of behavior. So essentially, what is happening here is a process of ontological racketeering, where the manfluencers take like people have this sort of sense that they know what things in society mean, this sort of security that they know the state of things, and manfluencers create different threats to this sort of security that you know how things are in the world, and they exacerbate these threats, propose their own solutions. Oftentimes, they monetize from this in the form of I don't know, gym coaching or such things, and that gives them more sort of credibility. But also, what I argue is what they are very, very efficiently doing is a process of effective racketeering, where they really skillfully manipulate the audience's emotions with certain visuals, symbols, with very specific sounds of different genres of music. For example, techno music is very commonly used to facilitate this sense of um, anxiety when you watch these videos. So I think this is a very important aspect of this content as well. And the recent shift that I have argued in my recent article is that they are not saying these very horrible things out loud that much anymore. They focus their content now more on like financial advice and fitness and these things, whereas these sort of problematic ideas around these financial advice and fitness and these themes, these problematic ideas haven't become sort of coded into certain visuals, into certain sounds that are used so often that they have become symbols of this content. So if you watch this content enough as an audience member, you kind of know what they mean, but they don't have to say these horrible things out loud anymore. And finally, I just wanted to reflect shortly on why are these ideas so successful. So, of course, the platforms play a very important part in this, and the manfluencers are masters of rage baiting. So they know what they are saying oftentimes is problematic, and it will just get your attention and just looking at the screen for a bit longer. And this will send the signal to recommendation algorithms that you would like some more of this content. Then they use these sort of wider anxieties in our societies um, to amplify the audience's sort of worries. So I don't know, people are worried if they're going to find a job or if they're burned out, if they're going to find a partner. And the manfluencers with their content oftentimes seemingly provide answers to these issues that young people specifically are oftentimes having. And there is also like very important social media context that facilitates anxieties around gender and appearances. For example, the whole looks maxing trend and mewing and extreme gym culture, which facilitates this sort of anxiety in a wider context. So people want sort of a sense of control over their life, and the manfluencers provide that to some extent. And of course, I think especially in Estonia, as a neighboring country of Russia, it is very important to keep this in mind. I mean, as a very effective tool for polarizing our society in the context of hybrid warfare as well, because it does sort of mobilize people very efficiently. It does create a lot of feelings in people. So that's very important to keep in mind. But I think I'm already over time. So thank you very much. I will stop talking now.